Father, thank you for the gifts that you give us in this day, and thank you for the chance to explore and discuss leadership and mentorship with other men. I pray that you would guide this conversation, and I thank you for technology that brings us together, and I ask that those that are still trying to get on are able to do that. In your name, I pray.
Amen.
All right, so what I want to ask about this week is the importance of having a team and the importance of being a mentor. And I think I'm going to start this conversation with, when you think back to growing up, either did you have a mentor and how did it go? Or did you want one? And what was your picture of what that was like? Because I wanted a mentor and didn't have one. So I want you to think about that, and when you're ready, you can share just some perspectives, your experiences with being mentored when you were a kid. And that could have been by your father.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is my dad, and just the work ethic he instilled in me. You know, it don't matter if you're tired, you get up, you go to work. And not only that, but also, love and affection. And I remember being, 14, 15 and still kissing my dad in public. And, he's like very proud of me for doing that. And, I didn't think anything of it, but that's how I was raised in that loving, nurturing, household where you worked hard. It didn't matter if you're a boy or not. You still, in Hispanic culture, the boys don't really do much, but it didn't matter. Everybody earned their keep in my household.
Yeah, I would agree. Like first, mentor really was my dad. Just like what Guillermo was saying, like that discipline for us was instilled very, very early on. And automatically my mind, it goes to, extremes, right? Or best case scenarios or worst case scenarios. So we got a lot of discipline, but at the same time, like I didn't learn how to express love. Maybe healthily is, I don't know if that's even a word, but we didn't say I love you. My family didn't say that. My dad never said I love you. He didn't say I'm proud of you. He was just not that type of dude. He was fun. We'd play and he'd play video games with us and stuff like that, but it was never this affection. Yeah, that definitely was something we were lacking growing up. But, I've said this before. One of the biggest lessons, and it sticks to me, is like never start a fight, but if it happens, you end it. That's just the reality. He's like, I don't care if you're getting. He literally told us, my brother, and if MJ were here, he would say it. I don't care if you're getting beat up by 3 or 4 guys.
You end it.
He's like, you're taking at least one down with you. That was the mentality. That was the mentality.
So the question was, just in case if you didn't hear it, Chip, was who was your mentor and what did that look like, or what had you hoped, or what did you want in a mentor if you didn't have one? And I have one follow-up for you, Angela. So if you weren't getting that love and affection from your dad, did you find it somewhere else? Did you get those?
My mom was the tender one. My mom was the soft one where, we just, they did I think they had a pretty good balance of like hot and cold and good cop, bad cop. We knew if we were going to get spanked by dad, you're probably gonna be limping afterwards. Like it's not gonna be a fun time. But if you get spanked by mom, you might have like, your ear might get twisted. You might get like a flick on the neck or something. And you're like, oh, thank God. We're good. So it's a totally different approach.
We would get it twice. We get it from mom first. Mom would usually use a weapon, and then dad would come home and finish the job.
He's like, finish him.
Yeah.
I have a question. Because if I have something similar, I mean, yeah, if you're thinking about someone who mentored you, and I think about my father, what's the difference between a parent and a mentor? And are you looking for a difference? Because I feel like that's the parent's duty is to mentor and train and teach their children and bring them up. But are you looking for something that's separate than that?
No, not necessarily, but I'm going to speak that some people, including myself, weren't mentored by their parents. So they might have found that elsewhere. Now, my parents, I would say, tried. I was pretty resistant to their mentorship. So I think part of the difference is like I think your parents are going to be your first mentors always, but like school, you might find a mentor in a field, in a certain field,
Mhm.
or work, you might have a mentor or an older.
Coach.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I don't think a parent is different per se than a mentor, but not every person was mentored by their parents.
So I think about that. I think about like all the ways my dad, quote unquote, mentored me in very specific areas. Never really taught us about cars, or never really like taught us like, how to do your taxes or save money, or, what credit is or anything like that. But like since I remember distinctly when I turned 10, like then began like Bible training, if you will, writing essays specifically, making me practice, give sermons, critiquing me, like
Wow.
legitimate, like actual, like that was the way he trained me. And I guess I have like a passion for that now as an adult. It's like I had three younger brothers, and they didn't get it as hard as I did as being the oldest, but I guess that like it transferred. Now I think about what I do with my life. I was like, well, I had a lot of training when I was younger, technically mentoring in this very specific area, but not in any other area, you know? So
Is
I
your dad
guess
a pastor?
he's not, he's a deacon, but my grandfather is a pastor, and it comes from like a line of that kind of. So
Your
yeah,
grandfather
but
that with your dad?
yeah. But the funny thing is like when I think about every other aspect of my life, I'm thinking about how things went. I think about that often, how helpful and useful it would have been to have a mentor. Like all the mistakes I made, like if I just had somebody that was like, hey, yeah, do this, don't do that. Hey, let me teach you this, let me teach you that. In literally every other area of my life, I wouldn't have made as many mistakes looking back, you know, and it would have been really useful. So that's why I kind of try to separate the idea of like, in my case, my parent from like a mentor per
Yeah,
se.
yeah, yeah. I do too. I separate them. Chip, how about you?
I mean, growing up, I feel that I was a lot with my grandfather. My grandfather was a lot of, even though I mean, he died right before we came to the States, and I was probably like 12, 13 at the time when he passed away. But from a young age, I still remember him, like the tenderness that he cared for, I guess from the biblical aspect, what a godly man he was, and teaching me about the Word of God and everything like that from a young age. I mean, not as extreme as probably what Andrew got, but just the care that he's given and his work ethic and everything like that. Growing up, I mean, from an early age, they had like I wouldn't say like a farm, but sort of like that. Everything that they did, they planted animals, everything like that, they did on their own. So as long as you can walk and talk, you had a job, whether it was watering the plants, whether it was bringing food to workers, whatever it was, like you did something. It's not like you were sitting on the sidelines. So obviously, when you were young, waking up at 5 a.m. sometimes, it was not something good in the sense that we didn't understand coming out full circle, that work ethic. I mean, it's something that I'm very grateful and thankful for. And when I came here to the States, it was actually my elementary school teacher, Miss Mateo. She's actually, she's the one that, because of her, I feel like I learned English quite quick. She told me, and I still remember this as best as I understood her. She looked me dead in the eye, and she was like, if you gave me 2 hours in the morning, I think classes would start like 7:30ish or 8 o'clock. So she was like, if you show up at 6 a.m. every day, she was like, I promise you in 6 months, you will learn English. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. But the level of care that this woman gave me that she didn't have to, like she had no, I mean, I was nothing to her. But I guess maybe she saw something that I'm forever grateful for her. I'm forever grateful to God because He had placed me at the right time with the right people that cared enough that because of her, I actually do speak English. I do have an accent, but you know, I'm probably the only one out of my family that actually speak it fluently.
And you got that mentorship from your dad to get up and work hard and work early too. So both of those things. My experience in this, I want to share. And my parents were very good people, and most of this is on me. I was always a very perceptive child, and I think my parents influenced this part of it as well. I grew up in a relatively impoverished community, and my parents spoke about it as like rise above your community. And I think they instilled accidentally that part of it wasn't the part that I'm going to say it wasn't intentional, but I started to perceive myself as better than or above those people. And then it also led into seeing myself as above my parents, as above my teachers. And I resisted what they had to offer. So it was a unintended consequence of this belief of rising above your status in your community. So I was always seeking outward for mentors. And I value the aspect of how much time I spent thinking about what I wanted in a mentor. So that's really the direction where I want this to go next. Not necessarily for you, but that may be the case. Like, what is it you want in a mentor? But also think about what is it that you have to offer. If I came up to you when I was 20, which I did to a few people, and say, I want you to mentor me, what would you have to offer? Not necessarily, I'm not asking about me, but I mean, think about the next generation. What do you have to give? And I really think this is important because as men of leadership, as men of authority, as men of Redwood, and as men that are guardians, right? I mean, we have something to offer, and I think we need to give some thought about what it is that we have.
That reminds me of a story in my life. I was trying to get into my profession, and my high school basketball coach, um, he was in the profession, and so I'm done with school, I'm done with college, and I go up to him and I, actually I call him and I ask, hey, can we do lunch? So he agrees, we do lunch, and I ask him, hey, can you mentor me? I want to get into this profession. And flat out tells me, I can't help you. Your background is your background. You got to kind of just do it on your own. And it kind of crushed me, it didn't dissuade me at all. It actually fueled me. Um, I was just like, you know me, we have a relationship. I'm trying to become where, I want to be what you are, and you're not going to help me. So anytime anybody comes up to me or I find out that they're trying to be my profession, I always go the extra mile. Like, I give them my business card. I tell them, hey, you need anything, you reach out to me, because it's important. Yeah, he was right. I can't help you get the job. However, I can walk you through the path, and that's half the battle. That's half the battle is understanding, the pitfalls and how to say things in the proper way. But that, yeah, it's our responsibility as men to bring up the next generation, because we've been there, we've done it, and it's just important, because I mean, it's also a necessity in a lot of regards to do that.
So did you end up still going to lunch, or you're like, you know what? Don't even bother
No, he
showing up to
paid. He
lunch?
paid for lunch. I was a broke college student. He definitely paid for lunch. Yeah, I don't pass up a free meal, obviously.
Yeah,
That makes me think, this will be quick, Angela, but we're one generation from that end of the church, right? Like, if we're not mentoring and bringing up the next generation.
I remember when actually what you're saying, Guillermo, actually makes so much sense, because you have like a tenderness when it comes to. Yeah, I've seen you interact with other people, and I think you have that. You're a natural mentor, is what I'm trying to say. I think that comes really easy, and it actually makes so much sense as you're saying this. After all these years that I've known you, and you're sharing this with me now, I'm like, oh, dude, that actually makes sense. When I think about mentors, I think about the times when I was in law enforcement, when you didn't really have to, there's a point in the training where you don't pick your mentor, quote unquote mentor, where they just give you somebody and they will intentionally give you someone who you clash with. There's different phases. There's going to be someone who's kind of, and it's all psychological, right? There's someone who's soft and tender. Hey, you got this, buddy. And another one was like, you are trash. You suck. You should have not been in this profession. And, Guillermo's smiling because we've had plenty of stories together, just funny times. But there's a moment when you're like, how the hell is this dude a mentor? And it took me years of insight to actually see the value in someone who you don't always agree with, to draw out another version of you that maybe hasn't been sharpened. Maybe you're so used to being pat on the back, attaboy, great job, you're a star athlete, you're always achieving, you're always winning. And then now you have someone that's like, dude, you suck. They're kicking you in the balls when you're used to always getting patted on the back. Now, I'm just saying this because sometimes we don't have the positive reinforcement, but if we can find some kind of gold in the ones that we do have, like what Guillermo said, turn it into fuel, I think we would be able to come out of situations a little bit better. Because you're right, the next generation needs this, but not every man is equipped to be like that positive reinforcement, because they didn't have that positive reinforcement. But if we're able to look at situations like, maybe we did, okay, maybe, it was kind of shitty, I didn't have mentors, but this is what I got out of that. Dope. And then secondly, I think someone told me the things that attract us about other people, or the things that we admire about other people, are just traits that we wish we had more for ourselves. So I look at this guy as a really good leader. I look at this guy as a really good speaker. I look at this guy as whatever. Like, oh man, I admire that about him. Internally, it's me saying, like, I wish I had more of that, or I wish I had more of that around me or in me, or something that it's like, I'm picking up on that. So I think now that I'm speaking out loud and me mentioning, I see Guillermo's tenderness as he leads other people. I think part of me is also like, maybe I should show a little bit more grace when I lead people, because I'm default, like Chip is smiling because he knows, like, some people I'll just kick them in the nuts and like walk on. but there's a time, we've talked about it, guys need a pat on the back or kicking the nuts.
The only thing that I can add to what piggyback on what Guillermo said and what you, Angela, said, is that using that, I guess, that negativity aspect as fuel to actually push on harder. I think not, and I don't want to like criticize the young generation, but I feel like it's all slowly dying with our generation, meaning like, that warrior mentality, see, like Guillermo used that as fuel. I feel like society and social media, whatever you want to call it, created this soft man mentality that when we hear no, or especially like the young generation, it freaking like takes the branch right under them, and they just like fall. Not only do they fall, but they keep hitting everything on the way down, all the other branches. And I'm like, dude, like, just use that, motivate, like something to like inspire you to like do better, to like, no, it's just like if somebody tells them that they're a failure, they actually believe that and they just run with that. And it's like, how do I, and I see a lot of it, and I'm not saying that I hope I'm a good mentor to my nephew, but I always tell him the things that I've seen, the things that I've heard growing up, or maturing, and in my walk, or whatever you want to call it. And I always tell him, don't allow anybody to tell you what you know you can do, in a sense that whatever you are, whether you sweeping up the streets, picking up garbage, or you're a freaking doctor, be the best at it and give it your best. Do not freaking stop fighting. Do not allow whatever it is to be, like that you're limited. Yeah, you're gonna reach a point where that's as far as you can go. But I'm like, make sure you have given everything.
I'm going to piggyback on what you're saying, Chip. and agree and add to it. I would say my experience has been the generation below me. So I'm just about 50. Conditions set up for what you're discussing, but my son is a part of the alpha generation, and I'm going to say I think it's swinging back. Though there's some badass MFers in that generation because they've seen what that softness has done. They see the society. If you think of some like I don't remember his name, the who's the podcaster that started fighting and he fought um the boxer. I can't remember his name. He's a really popular podcaster.
The YouTube guy,
Yeah.
Jake Paul.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, there is a group of people that really that want to be strong and you know, I'm just going to use as an example to this that the Army set its recruiting goals 6 months early, right? So this younger generation, I think, is switching back. I agree with you. I agree there is a generation, but there's an even younger one that's coming up, stepping up. And we can inspire both of those generations, right? But we probably need to inspire them differently, right? So, you know, back to Guillermo and Angelo's discussion, the generation right below me might need a little bit more softness and warmth and encouragement, and then my son's generation might need a kick in the pants because it's going to work for them. Being a counselor, like learning what people need is so important. So important. So I'm going to try to pull it back here. And I get it. I get that it shifted. I do understand that. But I really want you to think about what you have to offer. And you don't have to share it, right? But what do you have to offer? And then think about how do you bring that to someone who needs mentoring, right? Because without a plan, the people are going to perish, right? So, and I believe I am the one responsible for creating a soft generation behind me. It's my fault. Like we can criticize that as much as we want, but who made them that way?
Yeah, I was gonna say the only thing, like, I mean, I think we're only responsible for the people that obviously at our fingertips, whatever we can reach. You know, we're never gonna be held for the community or whatever, but we are gonna be held for the, you know, our friends and our family. Those people that, what do we do? Do we, you know, if you see them almost diving off the cliff, would you let them? You know, what about if that was you? So I do understand, and I think the only thing that you know, I have to offer, I would say it's probably like, you know, I'm a little bit more patient, I guess, you know, with people. Like, I tend to give them that understanding and that time to change. I don't expect them to like, you know, just like that. The reason why is because for me, change had to happen like that. For me, it was change like overnight because I was either gonna end up dead or in jail. So it was no other way. So because of that, I have that patience towards people to be like, okay, like, but also at the same time, when I have to push, I'm gonna push you. Like I'm gonna be there, you know? So
So when Chip sees someone struggling with patience, right? This is my point. When Chip sees someone struggling with patience, that could be someone he may need to mentor, right? So what is your heart bent towards? And maybe that's how God wants to have you serve, you know, someone else, right? Like you know, you all know this about me. I'm a nerd. I just absorb information and science, right? So if there's someone out there that likes to learn, right, that's probably someone I'm going to be, you know, drawn to mentor.
It's interesting, right? I was just thinking about this. I'm like, I think there's there's obviously a purpose and intention behind it, but I think God blessed my wife and I with a daughter first because I think I'm default aggressive. So if I had a son first, like who knows how I would have screwed this kid up. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure I would have taught him some good. I know I would have taught him some cool shit. But to also really be like, my daughter has taught me a different pace of love, a different way to love, to be more patient, to have more grace, to be more kind. And like my wife tells me all the time, she's like, you can't talk to her like that. Like you gotta, you gotta be a little bit more, like see how she's seeing the world. And it's just like, this is what I'm used to, but then this is how I'm being shaped to, and I think I look back at, there's a couple young kids that have reached out to me the last couple months just through connections and stuff. And it's funny, like I think it makes sense why God allowed me to experience a lot of different things in life, entrepreneurship, law enforcement, that warrior mentality, business, and all these different things, because I've been able to relate with these younger kids in different ways. Like some of them really like that I was a cop and this warrior thing. They really like that. And others, so the other ones don't really care about that. They cared about what I did in business. So it's like you're being able to relate and have conversations and speak from experience and not just theory. Because I think a lot of people bullshit around it, right? Like they'll pretend like they know because they've read a book, but that's not enough. The experience is what's really part of that ingredient for it's necessary for wisdom.
So looking to your experiences, thanks for adding that, Angelo, is also a part of your mentorship toolbox.
Andrew, you got something cooking in there, man. I see you nodding your head, and you got something in there. What do you got?
No, I keep having the same thought over and over again. It's like, what am I doing to become somebody that's worthy of being a mentor? I think it kind of turns back on yourself as well. Like, okay, yeah, did you have one? That could be irrelevant if you're thinking about your responsibility towards the next generation. You know, it's almost like either way, you have a bag of tools. If you had someone that was able to teach you, then you can impart that knowledge. If you didn't have somebody, then you have the knowledge yourself. But like, hey, at the very minimum, don't do what I did. Try this way better. Hindsight for me was 2020, so do this. And I'm thinking to myself of like, I had an experience similar to Guillermo where I went and tried to reach out to somebody to be a mentor and took them out. Literally, the owner of this company I was working for, I just reached out and said, hey, let's go to lunch. And I want to kind of pick your brain. I kind of want to know what you do and how you got into what you're doing and all that. And he was like, he agreed, but he was like the most standoffish, like kind of rejected the idea as well. And it's funny because like that company ended up going under like within like 3 months. So it kind of makes sense. Like, and that draw me to just like a little rabbit hole of thinking like, well, the type of person that's always wanting to impart knowledge, like once they've achieved something, once they've done something that's notable, the next goal, if the person is a good person, in my opinion, is like, how do I share this with others? How do I impart this with others? And even like when you learn a skill or when you learn to teach or you learn something, one of the steps in further attaining knowledge is how well can you impart that knowledge? Like when we have a men's group that we started, and like one of the three core principles was like, not only like the first one was like, okay, when I read the word, how do I understand the word? And then the second principle, like how do I understand the message? But the second core principle of that group is like, okay, now how do I take that information that I learned and like evangelize that to others, or be able to like properly explain that to others or teach that to others? Because that's a whole nother level of understanding in a topic or something. When you mentor others into it, you're learning as well. You really, it's like the most black and white. You've come face to face with the idea of like, what do you really know? What do you know well? Because you, in your mind, you're like, oh, I know how to do this, I know how to do that, I know how to do this. But try teaching that to somebody, and then you're confronted with the naked truth of like the extent of your knowledge, without any fluff, without any like perception. It's all just, this is what I know and this is what works. So I'm thinking, what am I doing every day to become someone that's worthy of being a mentor? What am I doing to become somebody that's achieving something? Whether it's at work, because I work in sales, and I'll be honest, like that's huge in my industry, right? I mean, you're finding someone to go under your wing. And I'm thinking back to another job I had, and I was like, one of my favorite parts of that job was when I was in recruiting and training. It's like the idea of bringing someone in who was fresh and training them up and then seeing them succeed was one of like the best feelings I've ever had, you know? So there's definitely a lot to that, but I think there's also like accountability and ownership in mentorship where you have to take the steps necessary to be someone worthy of mentoring somebody.
I want to thank you for that so much, Andrew, because what I know we're nearly at the hour mark. What Guillermo said, what you said, Andrew, is you both reached out to a mentor and you were kind of rejected. It happened to me. And what I want to encourage is like thinking about that from the other side and thinking like, so if someone reaches out to you, how can you prepare yourself for that, right? And what I believe happened is I think these people probably perceived themselves as unworthy, or they didn't think that they had much to offer. And I don't think that's true. I think everyone has something to offer. I think we're all worthy to be a mentor. And that is between us and the Holy Spirit in terms of what it is that we have to offer. But well, I guess I should say, and if we are preparing ourselves for that, okay, so this is what I have to offer. This is what I want to give. Then if we're in that situation, then maybe we won't rebuff someone because it was painful. I mean, because it takes a lot to reach out and do that, right? And I think it says way more about the mentor believing they have nothing to offer, they're not worthy. And that's unfortunate because if someone's coming, if a mentee is coming, then they obviously think you have something to offer.
I know you have to hop off, Samuel, but I think it's an interesting point, right? I think some guys don't think they have anything to offer, and then some other guys are more like, in a sense, what's a new term that kids gatekeeping? It's like,
Sidling.
right, yeah, exactly. It's like they see you as a threat, like, oh, this guy's gonna come after my bag. No, if I teach you my tools, if I teach you my craft, if I teach you what I do, you're going to come after what's mine. So it's almost this greed and pride that
Selfishness.
prevents.
Sad. It's sad. It's heartbreaking to me. And I think it also changes. This is going off of what Andrew said. It also changes as you get older. Like I'm in a position now where I do want to give back. It's actually a part of healthy development. The older you get, you want to impart your wisdom because I know I'm going to die. I would rather my wisdom be imparted to someone than it die with me. All right, we do need to wrap up. I got to jet.
Appreciate you, boys. Thank you. I'm going
Good
to
day,
hit
Sam.
stop. I'm going to hang out for a little bit.